Well, thank you for having me here today. It's really an honor to be here speaking about a topic that means quite a bit to me. So we'll just get the PowerPoint up. You'll notice there's some 3D glasses on your desks, so I'll have you pull those out at the right time. So today I'm going to talk about how, let's see, how 5G networks are going to transform the arts, culture, and creative industry. And as I mentioned, I'm a working artist, among other things. I'm also a producer, so we're going to show some clips from my own work and also from the work of my collaborators to illustrate some of the points I want to make. I'm going to start with the singer Helga Davis. She's performing the multimedia opera Oceanic Verses. This was at the Barbican in 2003. It's been performed around the world. It'll be in New York again at the Watermill Center for the Arts. So let's hand this over to Helga.
Muse of an aged people in the eve of fading civilizations, I was born of kindred that have greatly expiated and have greatly wept.
I've started with this clip because I want to demonstrate an essential point. The recording's pretty good, although you'll notice it's just a little out of sync here, and this was not intentional. It's an artifact of the playback system, and we could have fixed it, but I thought, well, actually, this is what happens when unexpected latency comes into the network. So Helga's very, very good live, actually, in person. And, you know, the recording's okay, but when you start to put it into a technological or mediated environment, things can start to go wrong, or you also lose that immediacy. So the goal as an artist and as a producer and also as an industry is to capture the immediacy and the excitement of a live experience. What you really want are people's spines tingling. And believe me, if Helga were standing here, you'd have goosebumps. So what we want to do is close the gap between being there physically and being there virtually. So let's take a look at the set of Oceanic Verses. This starts to give us a sense of what kind of architecture is needed to produce really live experiences. There's Helga, she's in the middle. There's a soprano, Hila Plitman, on the side. There's the BBC Symphony Orchestra playing in the background, and the singers. And then there's this multimedia environment at the top. There are 3 panels. One of them is a recording of Helga in Lecce, Italy, where this was actually filmed, and on the side are live dancers coming in over a video link. So what we see here is a trend towards immersive multimedia, and I just want to link it to a larger trend, which is technological convergence. I think this is something that you've probably heard about, but it's worth reflecting on. I'll just give a quick recap. You know, convergence started, or internet convergence started when the internet absorbed mail, and that gave us email, and then it started to absorb newspapers and magazines, which became news groups, and then Usenet, and finally websites. Telephony and television transformed into video sharing and video phones, which are now quite common. And notice how each stage of the convergence was triggered by more powerful connectivity. So connectivity alone is actually a transformative factor, and it's something that catalyzes a lot of other changes in society. When we look at going from 4G to 5G, we have to think about or try to forecast what this might have, the impact this is going to have on the culture. It's already been tremendous. So I did my first webcast in 1996. Now we're putting high def very commonly over that by going up to 10 gigabits per second. I think 5G mobile is going to enable the next wave of convergence. And we're wondering what that wave might be. I think 5G is going to bring the internet to architecture. And this specifically means buildings and architecture, not just network architecture. So it's going to transform the building into a platform for information and communication, and also for performance and creative expression, such as we just saw. So 4G powers smartphones, and 5G powers smart buildings. This is an example, it's called the Discovery Wall or Collection Wall. It's used in the Cleveland Museum of Art right at the entrance. It's a 40-foot touchscreen that lets people plan their tours and get a sense of what's in the collection. So I think in coming years, 5G is really going to transform architecture. We're going to see it, to reiterate, become an immersive telecommunications platform. And I think Ericsson has already started thinking about this. Some of the forecasts, they say, would be about 2025. Now, architecture has physical value. It keeps the rain off, but it also has symbolic value. So I think we'll see 5G transform buildings into flexible platforms for expression, communication, education, and entertainment. So we can start imagining buildings as nodes on a network. Similar to the phone, we're going to have all these capacities within architecture. Now, from an artist's perspective, we see it in very practical terms. The artist wants to transform an empty space into a rich, expressive environment that immerses people in physical and virtual experiences. And we'll see more about this particular set in a few minutes. So we want to give them sensations that are engaging their entire body, to look at the components of this experience that we want to create. We really have to engage vision, hearing, touch, and then the kinesthetic sense. And it's not something we think about too much now, but kinesthesia is the sense of the body in space and moving through space. And finally, there's the emotive sense. I was talking about the goosebumps. Right now, we mostly get goosebumps through artistic experience, but it may be possible to induce them through the vagus nerve. We probably want to be pretty careful if we start doing that. So many of us have been building these immersive experiences already. I've been working on it solidly for about 20 years, and finally I think we're getting some success in just the past few years, but it's very expensive and it's not always effective. So for immersion to become a creative platform, we really need the data transfer capabilities that 5G offers. 4G networks can manage HD, but it takes multiple channels of 4K or even 8K video to create immersion. So we really have to tackle several issues simultaneously. One is latency. As we saw at the beginning, low latency is critical to live performances. Another thing that I urge this conference to take on is the notion of edge computing. A lot of the processing that happens in live performances is happening, in cameras. In fact, there are cameras capturing this session right now. And there's a huge amount of latency introduced by cameras and other processing equipment at the edge. I think some of this is going to have to be absorbed into the network. 5G networks hypothetically offer 1 millisecond of delay, but you're going to have 25 to 50 or more in your cameras and in your processing equipment. So I think there's a real business opportunity here to start to look at what sort of processing functions are being used in the use cases. I'm working on the arts, but you might look at surgery and other ones, and start to see how those could be incorporated into the network and incorporated into your business model. The last part of this discussion is the Internet of Things, and I think the Internet of Things offers tantalizing possibilities for artists and audiences, and of course for businesses. So I want to show you an example that illustrates what I'm saying. Tim Fain is one of the world's great young violinists. He's right there. He was in The Black Swan, and he's been in a number of other movies. In his Portals project, he oops, I'm trying to get the video up here. He wanted to perform live with the pianist, Nicholas Bertel, and he wanted to do that over the network so they could be in different cities. So let's just, I think could you play that back? I'm not getting here we go. Let's come up. The goal was to play live, but they ended up playing with recordings of each other, and that's because they encountered the problem of latency. Now, we all experience delays, but actually music is a particularly acute case of latency. We can't tolerate much more than 5 milliseconds of delay in music. So it's actually a great use case to move forward because if you want telesurgery or any kind of other delicate operation that requires low latency, music will expose the faults, but you're not going to have deaths or destruction as a consequence of it, just an angry audience. So let's turn to the Internet of Things. I'll show you now the K-bow. This looks like an ordinary violin bow when it's being used, but it's actually a network interface that lets you trigger multimedia events and also broadcast signals to the audiences. So if you can just imagine transmitting through the cable and getting the feeling of the violin in your own fingers, or feeling a virtual handshake. These devices and actuators can be built into other things too. Or if you have some sort of direct stimulation of the vagus nerve, you might even feel the actor's heart pounding in your own chest virtually. So there are a lot of haptic devices coming on market now, and we're starting to look at the artistic and expressive uses of those. So stepping towards live means that we evolve past the technological concept of media, and that's a medium or something that intervenes, and towards platforms that create a feeling of being there. And being there is very, very important in artistic performances. I'm going to show you Blind Ear now. This is a project of musical entrepreneurs Christina Spinet and Jakub Supolensky. They've created a system that sends notation from computers live to musicians, and then that they can respond to the musicians and essentially compose in real time. They'll give a little explanation of that here.
So we decided to form our own ensemble and re-envision the concert experience by combining new technology with new music. Jakub designed this incredible software that makes it possible for us to send music live to musicians. The composer operates the central computer, as you see here, and sends the loops to the musicians. The musicians, in turn, read the loops on their laptop, and they reinterpret it back to us. They repeat this.
So what they've done is taken one of the oldest communications media, which is musical notation, goes back into the Middle Ages, and brought it into the 21st century. So they've transformed it from a medium into a platform. That's a point that I think Erickson often makes, that we're translating media into platforms, and it's very, very important to keep this in mind from an artistic perspective. So you can see that this scales up too. They started with composers and notation. Now they're working dancers into the performance. There's all kinds of new and immersive performance aspects. So I've said that immersion is live, but I'll give you an example of what the future may look like. This is Epiphany. This is a piece that premiered at the Brooklyn Academy of Music last November, and it's an immersive 3D performance. So if you could put on your 3D glasses, if you're watching the webcast and don't have the 3D glasses, rest assured that this will look fine. It's a specific kind of 3D that doesn't use stereoscopic. It uses color instead.
I saw the curving spine. I heard the jaw release, devouring itself, and then this hunger
You can see there are
I know
large monitors, about 20 meters each, or projection surfaces around the audience, which is basically an immersive holodeck. So you have live performers. There's a 40-person choir, there's a string quartet and a marimba, and the audience itself is part of the performance. They're there in the middle of everything. So what you have basically is an artistic holodeck, if you ever watched Star Trek, where you can create any kind of environment, and this environment, in fact, can be shared over a network. So we may wonder, how will the cultural platforms of the future be invented? So at King's College, where I'm a fellow, we're working with Ericsson to develop a co-creation model, and this is part of our 5G Connected Culture project, which is working to link remote stages together so that you can start to have performers all over the world collaborating with each other. This makes a lot of sense in a world which is trying to be sustainable, lower its carbon footprint. It would be ideal if companies could tour without having to go there physically, or at least not all the time. So we are working to create new forms of theater and performance from the ground up. And that also includes exploring the potential, the dramatic potential of haptics and the tactile internet. So we want to feed our results and methodologies into other domains, working from conception to prototype to demonstration and finally to adaptation. We think that once these platforms develop, they're not going to be fixed in time. They're going to continue to evolve in response to consumers and to the market. So the transformation that's happening in arts and culture is going to have a broad economic impact. I think it's going to spread far beyond the artistic realm. In the Renaissance, art drove science and engineering. And in our century, I think advances in cultural platforms can feed back into science. We can start to have perceptual engineering, and perception, of course, is a form of aesthetics. And we can also feed this back into marketing. So you'll see the arts driving user interface, user experience, and user journey. It also applies to entertainment. I think whatever television evolves into, it's going to look more like that artistic holodeck. You'll see a convergence between film, television, theater. I don't think that the market is going to make these distinctions, although we may well make them in our head as producers. So in the world to come, creative talent is going to collaborate without boundaries because everything will be connected. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Very exciting and excellent presentation. I can imagine that there are a few questions. So please, Lauri.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting presentation. So how do you see that we talk also with 5G talk also about Internet of Things and sensors everywhere. So do you see also the sensors, so kind of sensing the environment around us melding into entertainment and culture, and how Do you have some ideas how that could be?
I absolutely do. I think that with sensors, you'll start to see things become more of a character in the drama. So they're going to be able to gauge what's going on in the environment and produce results there. So people might, and right now we do things that look like magic. There are magic tricks. You're going to use them to trigger events that happen on the stage. So you might be able to reveal someone's psychological state every time. I'll give you an example. Let's say that I'm an actor on a stage, and every time I come towards this table, it triggers a really bad memory or some sort of memory. Maybe it's a pleasant memory. Then as I approach this table, the sensor will feel me there, and then it might even read my emotional state, and you might see my emotional state portrayed on this screen or in a virtual environment that you're already in. So you can trigger events happening. The CABO also uses sensors. You could have a sensor that feels the vibrations of the strings of the violin, but you could also have a sensor that feels the pressure of the violinist. And if that pressure translates into something meaningful, let's say that when they're very excited, they squeeze it hard, and the audience can then feel that at the other end of the medium, if there's some sort of actuator or transponder that takes those sensors can translate things that we currently can't perceive into perceptible forms of expression.
I think we have one more question, please.
A fantastic presentation. I was just wondering, now you go into art, I mean, we're always pushing for top performance in the technology that you're looking at. When you come to art, is it that you can actually relax some of the requirements or the performance on some other technology, and are you missing performance in other parts of technology when it comes to using it in another area, so to say, apart from telecommunication and computers in the industry?
That's a very good question, too. Actually, I think art is always about finding boundaries. So it's when you have the boundary, when your imagination hits a boundary, that you get creative. So I do think it will be necessary to come up against these boundaries, and I think we need to work around them, and that's where expression comes in. We're always trying to find the poetry in the machine. The machine has its limits in the things it's supposed to do. What are the things that it's not supposed to do? And this often happens at the boundaries. So it could be that the medium or the platform becomes distressed, and that's the point where you have something fuzzy that becomes very interesting to experience.
So I think we need to break, and then we will be all around in the breaks, and we can continue the discussion. So thank you very much, Shelley.